Data has created a real person. Hey everybody, welcome to the D. Louise Book Series channel. I'm Christina, Kristina. And we are on disc 4 of season 3. And please check out my other videos for Deja Q, A Matter of Perspective, yesterday's Enterprise, which was really good. That was my first experiment. I'm going to try it again with this one. And today we are talking about the Offspring. The Offspring. And we start out the episode with a voiceover by Picard saying that Riker is on personal leave. And they are exploring an asteroid belt. The next scene we see is in the hallway with Troy, Data, Troy, Geordi, and Wesley. And they've all been summoned to Data's quarters. And they talked about the fact that Data has spent all his time in the lab, all his free time in the lab, and he's been very, very secretive. It's unlike him to be this secretive. Data has them all come into the lab, which I think this is the same place that Picard goes after his experience with the Borg. And Data tells them that he's created Lau. And I apologize in advance, but does not look like Oscar. This little statue guy that they hand out at the award show. It looks like Oscar with the muscles and the whole 9 yards. So Data introduces him to Lau, activates Lau. It greets Troy and Geordi, and it calls Data father, and Wesley points it out, and Data says yes, Lau is his child. Then we have the introduction, and Picard does a voiceover where he says he was informed about a highly unusual undertaking by Data. Data explains that Lau has a positronic brain similar to his. He explains that he began the programming at a cybernetic conference, but nobody's been able to do what was done to Data, at least not how he was programmed. And Data's like, yeah, but this is he learned about a new submicron matrix transfer technology introduced to the conference, which he's discovered could be used to lay down complex neural pathways. So Data transferred some of his knowledge into Lau. And he says to Wesley, he realized for the first time that it was possible to continue Dr. Sun's work. His initial transfers produced very encouraging work, so he brought the brain back with him. So the captain comes in, and he's not pleased. He's not pleased that Data did all this behind his back. And he's like, Data, I would have liked to have been consulted by this. And Data says he has not observed anyone human or any other species on the ship consulting Picard about their procreation. Well, he's got him there. And Troy asks, why did you not give it a more human look? And Data explains that he decided to allow his child to choose his own course. So Picard says, Data, at your own convenience, I would like to speak with you in my ready room. Then Picard leaves with Troy, and he's telling Troy that he insists we do whatever we can to discourage the perception of this new android as Data's child. It is not a child. And Troy explains he says it's an invention, albeit an extraordinary one. And Counselor Troy responds, why should biology rather than technology determine whether it's a child or not? Data has created an offspring, a new life out of his own being. To me, that suggests a child. He wishes to call Lau his child. If he wishes Lau to be his child, who are we to argue? Picard says, oh well, if he must, I fail to understand how a 5-foot android with heuristic learning systems and the strength of 10 men can be called a child. And Troy says, well, you were never a parent. So Picard is talking to Data. He's telling Data what he has done will have serious ramifications. He tells Data he is truly dismayed that he didn't tell anybody he was doing this. And Data says he's sorry he did not anticipate the captain's objections. Data asks him if he wishes Data to deactivate Lau. And Picard says, it's a life, Data. It can't be deactivated. This is a stupendous undertaking. Picard asks Data if he has any idea what will happen when Starfleet learns about this. But Data replies that he has followed all Starfleet's regulations to the best of his ability. Picard's, he says he thought Starfleet would be pleased. Picard takes a deep breath and says, well, you have taken on quite a responsibility, Data. Data says to prepare for he has scanned all the available literature on parenting. And there seems to be, and he goes on and on and on about parenting. Then Picard's like, okay. I am thinking you can treat an android child like a real child. The android child is going to be smarter, stronger, and Data's like, no. So Picard gets a little loud, and Data says, I'm not talking about parenting. I'm talking about the extraordinary consequences of creating new life. Data says, does that not describe becoming a parent, sir? And Picard's like, oh, God. So Data looks at him curiously, and after a few minutes, Picard says, Data, you are seeking to achieve what only your own creator has been able to achieve, to make another functioning sentient android, to make another Data. Data responds, that is why I must attempt this. He goes on to say that he has observed in most species there is a primal instinct to perpetuate themselves. Until now, he has been the last of his kind, the only one. I kind of have that feeling too. I'm the last of my kind. He says, if he were forever damaged or destroyed, I would be lost forever. But if I am successful at my creation of Lau, my continuance is assured. I wish I had that surety. Anyways, the next scene is in the hallway. Data is with Lau and Troy, and Lau is identifying male and females and still wearing their clothes. They could have at least put a bathrobe on, right? A bathrobe, male and female can wear a bathrobe. I don't know what was wrong with that. And it's looking more and more like Oscar to me, but I'm just saying. So Lau says, I am gender neuter, I am inadequate. And Data explains that way you must choose a gender to complete your appearance. Lau asks what's the criteria. Data tells Lau to access your data banks and sexuality level 2. That will define the parameters. Then Troy says, whatever you decide will be yours for a lifetime. It is a decision that will affect how people relate to you. And Lau says, I must choose your sex and appearance. And they're like, no. So they go into the holodeck, and Data says he has programmed 100,000, several 100,000 choices. And Troy's like, several hundred? Isn't that a little bit much? So when we come back, Lau is made down to 4 choices, and she ends up picking female. So they go back to his quarters, and he's teaching her chair and couch and painting and flower, and she smells the flower and she can smell it. And I want to know how a computer can smell. I'm just asking. Okay. So she reminds me, when she's going through all this, of, if you've seen the Helen Keller movie where they do the water towards the end and the light bulb is like, oh, this wet stuff, this liquid stuff is water. WATER, water. And the light bulb, and that's what she's doing here. She said that light bulb moment, and she's learning all these words and all these phrases and all this kind of stuff. So that's so then the next scene, is Wesley and Data monitoring her coordination. They're throwing a ball back and forth. And then she's in 10 forward and she's eating ice cream. And I want to know why Sorry People's Android robot computer is eating ice cream. And she's drinking fluids. What did these fluids and this ice cream going to do to her circuits? Explain this one to me. So then Data is trying to learn how to be a parent. And so she goes to Dr. Crusher for help on how to learn to be a parent. And she's like, well, she realized she uses her childhood for Wesley as an explanation to Wesley. And after she explained how her childhood was, he had a better understanding. And Data should explain how he had trouble in the beginning assembling into society to make her feel better. Although androids are not supposed to have feelings. Again. And Data tells the doctor she's becoming sentient. The next scene, Picard is talking to the Admiral, and the Admiral is saying that we have tremendous admiration for what Commander Data has achieved, but we have superior facilities and personnel at Gala 4. And he says the starship is probably the proper settings, and Picard interrupts it. This is a family ship, And so they go back and forth about it for a while. And Picard then tells the Admiral he would be willing to consider releasing Lal and Data to you so that he may continue his work with her. And the Admiral's like, no, we just want her. We don't want Data. We don't want Data influencing her. And Admiral questions the fact that Picard is referring to Lal as Data's child. And Picard explains why it may not be easy for you and I to see her that way. That's how Data sees her, as his child. The Admiral says Starfleet policy and research is clear. He said Picard is making a stand on a very uncertain ground, and he hopes it doesn't fall out from under him. And then Data meets with the school teacher, and the school teacher explains that they tried putting Lal with age-appropriate kids, and it didn't work, so that they were going to put her with younger kids, and that didn't work. So then Data and Lal have a talk about it, and he ends up taking her to 10 forward. We'll get to that. I just skipped a couple scenes. So then I wanted to mention before I forget, I passed it and I should have shown it. But Lal is saying that she learned how that humans show affection by holding hands, and it's such a cute little scene with Data holding Lal's hand. He doesn't get it, but it's just so cute. So anyway, the Admiral has come aboard, and the Admiral tells Picard to hold his position. So he gets. Ow! I've skipped scenes. I'm sorry. All right, we'll catch up. So the Admiral tells him to hold his position until he gets there. He has discussed the situation with other Starfleet officers, and he wants to personally review the android's development. Picard is okay and thinks the conversation is over, but the Admiral goes on to say that if he is not satisfied with what he sees, he has been authorized to bring the android back to Delta 4. The next scene is Captain Picard giving a supplemental voiceover saying that they are waiting for the Admiral's arrival, and the Commander Data is completing his final neural transfers. How did I skip this big scene? Wait a second, let me go back. Okay, this is the scene I missed. They go to 10 forward, and they're talking to Guinan. Lal says to Data says, I have a great deal to learn from working with someone as old as you. And Guinan's like, you're hired. Guinan says the most important part about working someplace like this is the art of listening, and I have some expertise, so I will teach you. Lal says that that would be most beneficial. I've been programmed with the listing of 14,000 beverages. And Guinan says, what? And she says, I've. And Guinan says, I've. And Data says, you've used a verbal contraction. Guinan says, you've said I've instead of I have. Data says, that is a skill he doesn't have. And Lyle says, well, then I'll desist. And Data's like, no, you go on. You have exceeded my abilities. I do not object, but I do not understand how this has occurred. Picard interrupts and requests Data in his ready room. Picard is telling Data about the Admiral, and he says he's certain that the Admiral is anxious to meet Lau. I have been sending him regular status reports on her development. Picard explains that his visit is not just an inspection of Lau's progress. He has expressed concern for her environment. Data is confused by this. Her environment? Picard says he believes that the Daystrom Annex on Gala 4 would be more suitable. Data says then he wishes to relocate us. Picard says no, not you, Data, just Lau. Data says he would not be in favor of that. He says there are many things that she can only learn from him. His lifetime of experiences, the mistakes, and what I have learned. Worf interrupts to say Commander Riker has returned, and Picard says to tell Riker I will meet him in an hour. Picard then goes on to tell Data that the Admiral has taken the position that Leia's development will be overseen by the most experienced personnel. And Data thinks on this, then he says, then he is questioning my ability as a parent. Picard says, in a matter of speaking. Data asks, does he have kids? And Picard says, yes, I believe he does. And asks him why. And Data says, I am forced to wonder how much experience he had as a parent when his first child was born. All right, Data, point in your favor. Yay! The next scene is back in 10 forward. Oh, this is funny. The next scene is back in 10 forward. Lal and Guinan are observing a couple in love. Lal says if the joining of hands is a symbolic act for humans, Guinan says it shows affection. She goes on to explain that humans like to touch each other. They start with hands and go from there. Lal gets upset when the couple start kissing and says he's biting her. And Guinan stops her from yelling and says, no, he's not biting her. They are pressing lips. It's called kissing. Lal asks Guinan when they leave, and Guinan says, your father has to explain that. Riker comes in just 10 forward, and I remember he's been away. He comes into forward, and he goes straight to the, oh, so you're new here. And she's like, yes, and she pulls him in for a kiss. And then Data walks in, and, Guinan says, Lal, put him down, so she puts him down. And Data walks in and says, Commander, may I ask what your intentions are with my daughter? That was too much. It was too funny. Okay, then we have the hand-holding scene. Sorry, I was out of place. So, anyway, the Admiral comes, and the Admiral is saying no objective viewpoint could see it any other way. Picard says he thought the Admiral was sent here to form an opinion, not to justify one. The Admiral says, let's not make this any more difficult than it needs to be. Picard says, I see no need for it to be difficult at all. I understand your concerns. What I'm asking for is time and patience. If you have an open mind, I'm sure you will see that it is imperative that Data and Lal be kept together during the formative stages of their development. After that, I have no doubt Commander Data will be delighted to deliver her to Starfleet research. The Admiral says that is not satisfactory. If mistakes are made, the damages that done might be irreparable. Picard says, I'm convinced the damage will be irreparable if they are separated. The Admiral says, Captain, we are talking about breaking up a family. Isn't that rather sentimental attitude towards androids? Picard says, they are sentient beings. Didn't we prove that in A Measure Man? Duh. Didn't we go through all of that? Their rights and privileges in our society have been defined. I helped define it. The Admiral says, yes, Captain, I'm more than willing to acknowledge that. What you acknowledge is that Lao may be a technology step forward in the development of artificial intelligence. Picard says a most significant step. The Admiral says yes, and work like this demands to be done in controlled procedures. And Picard says, Data's doing that. And the Admiral says, ineffective isolation, and that is what Starfleet research finds unacceptable. All right. The next scene is with Data, Picard, and the Admiral, and Data is telling them how Lau now has the sum of some of his programs. And the Admiral asks her neural nets are way down like yours, and Data says there do just seem to be some variations. She can use contractions. Admiral says, what has he done about this? And Data tells him he's documented everything. And Picard says Data seems to have improved upon himself. And the Admiral says, but as a good father, don't you think it would be better, especially in the light of the new aberration, if Lau were close to train people in diagnostic and evaluative procedures? Data says he's programmed with those procedures. And the Admiral says, you haven't mastered human culture and behavioral norms, have you? Well, and Data's like, no. So then they go to 10 forward, and the Admiral is not pleased that she's learning her social situations from 10 forward. And Guinan tries to interrupt and make peace and saying, you used to spend bars in town. What other place would be a really good place to see human behavior? And the Admiral says he's not convinced that this is the place, and Guinan says what she says. So then the Admiral says he's looking forward to meeting Lau. Oh, that's right, they're meeting. Okay, so they're meeting with Lau, and the Admiral says that he has been looking forward to meeting her, and she asks why. He tells her that she is very important to Starfleet research and tells her about Gala 4 and says he wants to show it to her. And Picard interrupts and tells her that the Admiral suggested that she moves to Gala 4. And Lau asks why, what has she done wrong? And the Admiral says, no, you've done nothing wrong. They just want to broaden your experience. He says there is only so much you can learn on a starship. And Lau says, yes, she agrees with him, and then goes on to say that at the natural conclusion, when she's learned all she can on the starship, then she'll go. And the Admiral's like, no, we want you to go now. And he doesn't believe that the natural conclusion is here. And Lau says she believes it is. And Picard says that the Admiral believes she needs more guidance than Data can provide. And the Admiral says he has great respect for her father. And Lau is like, you don't sound like it. And Lau says she is just, the Admiral says she's being adversarial. And Lau says, no, she's just stating a fact. The Admiral says he doesn't think her father has taught her selective judgment in the verbalization of her own thoughts, and that is a skill we want to help you develop. She says her father is helping her do this. And the Admiral questions, has he helped you enough? And Lau says, why are you asking me this? So the Picard says, why don't we ask her? In all these discussions, no one has ever mentioned her wishes. Picard says she is a free, sentient being. Measure, ma'am. What are your wishes? She says she wants to stay here. Lau leaves, and her insides are shaking. She's scared. And for an android to be scared, so then they meet with Data. The Admiral says that Data has done a fabulous job with Lau, but he has come to the decision that he wants Data to release Lau to him. The Admiral and Data says why, and the Admiral says, well, besides all the other arguments, there's one irrefutable, that there are only two Dr. Sun types, and if you're both on the same ship and a Romulan vessel gets under attack, you're both destroyed. And Picard says that's a fine argument, but it doesn't change my feeling that the proper place for Lau to develop is with Data. The Admiral says, you are not a parent, Captain, and I have learned with difficulty there comes a time when all parents must give up their children for their own good. But not after 3 weeks, maybe 20 years with college, or maybe kindergarten or first grade, but they're still going home to you, right? Picard said, this is not the time. Even I can see that the umbilical cord is still not cut. Well, duh, it's only been 3 weeks. Data says, why I created Lau, it was in the hope that someday she would choose to enter the Academy and become a member of Starfleet. I wanted to give something back in return for all that Starfleet has given to me. I still do, but Lau is my child, and you ask that I volunteer to give her up. I cannot. It would violate every lesson I have learned about human parenting. I brought a new life into this world, and it's my duty, not Starfleet's, to raise it. Well, duh. Of course, it's Data's responsibility. He did that. So then they get into it. Picard and the Yabba get into it, and they just fight. And then there's Troy interrupts them all and explains what's going on with Leia, that she's frightened out of her mind. And so they take her into the technical room, and she's malfunctioning and they can't fix her, and she passes away. And so Data comes on the bridge to inform everybody that she's passed away, and Picard says, the crew is very saddened by your loss. And Data says, well, he doesn't feel, but he's transferred her memories back into him, so he remembers all her memories. So that's the end of this episode. The Offspring. I hope you stuck with me the whole time. This experiment worked. It was the second time I did this. I hope you stuck through, and I hope you continue on my Star Trek journey. We still have let's see. We still have uh 5, 6, and 7 in the series to go for season 3. So please hit the like and subscribe. Show me your support. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.